Here's a full, long, deeply emotional story written in plain paragraphs with smooth pacing, designed to hold attention for a 40-minute YouTube video. It begins with a hook, develops a touching plot with challenges, and ends with an inspiring message while motivating viewers to like and subscribe. The story begins on a chilly autumn morning, where the playground of a private school buzzed with the laughter of children. But in one corner, laughter was replaced with cruelty. A small boy, frail and sitting in a wheelchair, was surrounded by a group of classmates. They mocked him, pushed his chair back and forth, and hurled words that cut deeper than any wound. "You'll never walk like us. You don't belong here," one of them sneered. The boy's eyes welled up with tears, but he bit his lip, too proud to cry out for help. His world, already heavy with challenges, felt like it was closing in further. And just then, it happened. From across the yard, a man in a worn-out jacket and simple jeans appeared. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with the quiet presence of someone who had known both war and pain. This man wasn't a teacher, nor a security guard. He was just a single dad, dropping off his little daughter before heading to his night shift. But when he saw what was happening, his instincts kicked in instantly. His footsteps grew firm, his voice thundered, "Enough." The bullies froze. The man's piercing gaze held them in place, and though he didn't raise his hands, the authority in his stance spoke louder than any words. The disabled boy looked up, and for the first time that day, he felt safe. The bullies scattered, embarrassed and ashamed, as the man knelt beside the wheelchair. His voice softened, "You're stronger than they'll ever understand. Don't let them take away your shine." He patted the boy's shoulder gently before standing up, ready to leave quietly. But what he didn't know was that someone had been watching. From a sleek black car parked just beyond the school gates, a woman had witnessed everything. She was dressed elegantly, diamonds glinting faintly in the morning light, her aura commanding respect. She was Isabella Morgan, the billionaire CEO of a vast real estate empire, and more importantly, the mother of the boy in the wheelchair. She had arrived to drop off her son, but instead, she had witnessed the raw courage of a stranger who defended her child when others looked away. Her heart raced. As a mother, she had money, power, influence, but in that single moment, she saw something she couldn't buy: true honor. Isabella stepped out of her car and approached the man. He immediately stood tall, out of respect, but his eyes were modest, his hands rough with the marks of labor. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Most people just look the other way. You didn't." The man gave a small nod. No child should ever feel alone in a world this big. Then he tried to excuse himself, almost embarrassed by the attention. But Isabella wasn't going to let him disappear. That evening, she had her driver find out who he was. His name was Daniel Carter. A decorated veteran, once part of a special unit, who returned home scarred not just on the outside but within. His wife had passed away years ago, leaving him to raise his daughter alone. He worked 2 jobs, janitor by night, delivery driver by day, just to provide for her, often skipping meals so she wouldn't. Despite his struggles, his spirit was unbroken, and his character spoke louder than any resume. The next day, Isabella arranged to meet him. She waited outside his modest apartment building, where Daniel carried his sleeping daughter in his arms after a long shift. He was shocked to see her there. "Miss Morgan, what are you doing here?" he asked, cautiously. She smiled warmly, though her eyes carried sincerity. "I came to thank you properly. And, I came with an offer." At first, Daniel resisted. He didn't want charity, didn't want pity. But Isabella wasn't offering either. She saw in him not just a savior for her son, but a role model the world desperately needed. "I need someone strong, someone trustworthy to mentor my boy," she explained. "He doesn't just need doctors and therapists, he needs someone who understands strength isn't about walking, it's about standing tall no matter what." Daniel hesitated, but when he saw the little boy's hopeful smile, his heart melted. Slowly, a bond grew between them. Daniel began spending afternoons with Isabella's son, teaching him how to focus not on what he couldn't do, but on what he could. They worked on wheelchair basketball, on resilience exercises, and even on self-defense techniques adapted to his condition. The boy's confidence began to bloom like never before. And something else happened. Isabella, who had built walls around her heart after years of betrayal and shallow relationships, found herself drawn to Daniel's authenticity. He didn't treat her like a billionaire, he treated her like a mother. He didn't care about her wealth, only about what kind of human being she was. In Daniel, she saw not just a protector for her son, but a man who reminded her of values money could never buy. Of course, the journey wasn't smooth. Whispers began among the wealthy elite. Why was Isabella, a billionaire, associating with a janitor? The school parents gossiped, mocking her behind her back. Even Daniel doubted himself, feeling unworthy of stepping into their world. But Isabella silenced them all with a single declaration at a charity gala. Taking Daniel's hand, she said before the cameras, "This man protected my son when the world turned away. He is more of a hero than anyone in this room. And if you cannot see that, then your wealth has blinded you." The room fell silent. Daniel stood frozen, humbled, and yet, in that moment, he finally allowed himself to breathe. The boy, now brimming with courage, no longer cowered from bullies. With Daniel's guidance, he stood up for himself, not with fists but with dignity. And Isabella. She discovered that love wasn't in diamonds or mansions, but in the quiet, steady presence of a man who had once been forgotten by the world. The story ends with the boy at a school event, giving a small speech. His voice quivered, but he spoke from the heart. "I used to think being in a wheelchair meant I was broken. But now I know, I'm not broken. I'm strong. Because strength isn't about legs, it's about heart. And my mom, and Mr. Daniel, they taught me that." The entire audience stood and applauded, tears streaming down faces. And as the camera lingers on Isabella, Daniel, and the boy standing together as a family, something unplanned, something unspoken but deeply real, the narrator's voice carries the final message. Sometimes, the greatest heroes aren't the ones with medals or riches. They're the ones who step in when no one else does. And sometimes, the most powerful love stories are born not in mansions, but in moments of courage. Viewers are left inspired, their hearts touched, with a call to action. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Together, let's share more stories that remind the world of the power of kindness, courage, and love.